Welcome to Passionate World Talk Radio. Educate, enlighten, entertain.
This episode of the Energy Stoners Café is sponsored by Passionate World Talk Radio and Lillian Caldwell. PassionateWorldTalkRadio.com. Welcome to the Energy Stoners Cafe. My name is Toni Quest, and I'm really happy that you're here. I like to interview the most interesting people I can find on the planet. So grab a cup of coffee, sit down, relax, and listen. You're going to find that these guests are so intriguing, you'll wonder why you didn't know about them before. Hello, everybody. We're back to the Energy Stoners Cafe. And as usual, I want to advise you that it is a cafe setting. So grab a cup of coffee, grab a glass of wine. That's what I'm doing. And relax, because I have some people tonight that have an extraordinary story to tell. I have on the show today a friend of mine, Heidi Russell, who I've worked with and collaborated with for a number of years. She is definitely a star in the area of my life, in the context of my life. She has curated an exhibit that's virtual, and it's called Spring Forward, Vibrant Visions and Voices of Women Artists Globally. Something like that, okay? I'm going to let her say it. It's a mouthful. I kind of like short titles, but I respect the long titles because they tell a whole story. She is with her co-curator, whose name is Arantxa. And tell me your last name, Arantxa.
Arantxa Rodriquez.
Oh, that's easy. Arantxa Rodriquez. So Heidi Russell and Arantxa Rodriquez belong to an organization called I Was, which is the International Women in the Arts Salons. And this is an organization that's been around for a while. And part of the reason that I know Heidi is because of this organization. And I'm going to let them talk about this exhibit because we're actually recording this during Women's History Month. And, you know, what better way to do it than to actually exhibit and display art and talk about it. So I'm going to welcome Heidi Russell and Arantxa Rodriquez to the Energy Stoners Cafe. Welcome, ladies. Thank you for joining in.
Thank you. Hi, thank you so much. Exciting.
I'll ask Arantxa this question. Why did you decide to do this exhibit, aside from the fact that it's with women and it's Women's History Month?
Well, I had the pleasure and amazing coincidence of meeting Heidi around 2 years ago in a show that she actually put together with other friends that were also women artists. And I met her there and we clicked, and then life passed. I was doing my MFA and we got a little bit disconnected, and all of a sudden I did an open studio. I'm an artist and an educator as well. And Heidi, she went to my open studio without knowing that it was my studio, because there were open studios in my building, right? And then I saw her message. I'm like, Heidi, what are you doing here? It's so good to see you. Did you receive my newsletter? And she's like, no, I just came to see the studio. And I'm like, oh, well, this is an amazing coincidence. So we connected there again, and we stayed a little bit in touch. It was 1 week before the pandemic hit, actually. So the pandemic hit, and then Heidi and me kind of like stayed in touch. And then she called me one Sunday, like at 10 p.m. And she was like, I have this amazing opportunity, and I feel that you're the person that could help me out of this. I don't know why Heidi felt this. I don't know if I feel that there's connection between all of us further that we can explain, you know, and she felt that I was the correct person to help her on this. And she's like, we have 1 week to put together a show of 50 women. Because I got lent an amazing space, and I'm like, wow, this sounds too easy in the middle of the pandemic, putting a 50 woman show together in a week. And I just had a heartfelt, and I was like, you know what? I feel that this is going to be a lot of work, very swift, but amazing, because in the middle of a pandemic, when not a lot of things are going on and people are, you know, not motivated, and Women's Month, and I was like, if we're going to put together a show of 50 women from around the world in New York City in a really cool space, this is going to be history, you know, like in the middle of a pandemic, this is history. I'm on. If I can make history and help 50 women artists and Heidi, because she's a good friend, then let's do it. So that's how came together.
It is historical. I agree with you on that because it's amazing what creatives are doing during this time. Creatives, we somehow always manage to step up to the plate. Heidi, speaking about the space, I'm going to ask Heidi this. How did you stumble upon this space in the West Village of New York City? Now, this, as you know, the show goes globally, and actually for an artist to exhibit in Greenwich Village in New York City, which is Manhattan itself, is quite extraordinary and quite an honor for an artist to be part of an exhibit like that. And I'm wondering, Heidi, how did you stumble upon the space?
Well, first, I'd like to comment and give amazing kudos, high fives, shout outs to my co-curator and partner in this endeavor, Arantxa, who, as she mentioned, linked up periodically over the last few years. And just like she said, I think the universe brings us together for reasons, just like you, Toni, and I have come together for and been able to do some great things over the years to help promote each other's visions and especially with helping women prosper and rise up. And I founded International Women Artists Salon in 2008 after moving here to my own art and realizing that there's much to learn in the art world here in New York City and the nuances. And I formed International Women Artists Salon to help women artists connect, help become a hub for great arts organizations and resources, and raise up the awareness and economies of being a woman artist. And so over the last 13 years, we've had a radio show, showcases. We've done a couple other large salon exhibitions I've curated independently. And this pandemic year, has paused things for many of us, and including myself. And during the pandemic, I actually was wandering around the village with my poodle, and I connected with some people at the Westview newspaper here in the village. And they had a connection here to a space at the St. John's Church here on Waverly Place near 7th Avenue. And they have a gallery called Revelation Gallery. They also have a theater upstairs called Rattlesnake Theater. And they also do concerts and stuff. So they're very, very vested in the West Village and promoting the arts in general. And so I had the great fortune of a colleague at Westview News introducing me to Father Graham at the St. John's. And he says, well, right now my March is free. Do you want to take it? I took it, and I realized this is a great opportunity to have a physical space during the pandemic.
It is.
I thought to myself, who could help me out? Because, I know it's a lot of work from having done them in the past. And I just had great synergies and a great feeling about Arantxa's dedication to the arts and women creatives. So I reached out, and she said yes. And I have not been disappointed. She's one of the most amazing people I've worked with. Very dedicated, spot on, great ideas. And we have pulled together an incredible exhibition. And we had a great physical opening on March 2nd, I guess it was, on Tuesday. And we had to space it out because of, adhering to COVID protocols. We had about 35% in the space, about 20 people. We had a piano player who stepped up and said, hey, I want to play the piano in the space.
Great.
Yeah, so it's just come together great. 50 women from different countries around the world. And now we've been working on this virtual online opening and some artist talks.
That's fantastic. Arantxa, were you involved in I Was for a long time? I'm wondering, because it seems like that particular organization sort of breeds like these extraordinary people, as I've noticed over the years since Heidi started it. Tell me, Arantxa, how did you get involved with I Was?
In a way, I feel that I was connected with I Was because of the communication that I kept with Heidi. When I met her, and it was like a poetry reading. Now that I remember, poetry reading.
Different place, right?
Place? Yeah. Exactly, near the Bowery, right?
Yes.
And so we connected there, and in a way, we kept in sporadically conversations along the year. And then Heidi invited me to a group called Artpot. It's like a platform where you can share your work. So we connected there. We talked a little bit. So honestly, I'm pretty new to the salon. I know Heidi for 2 years now, but my friendship with Heidi honestly became really strong when the pandemic hit, because we just started being more in communication. So relationship with the salon, with the International Women Art Salon, has been recent, but in a way I feel that my heart was like always there, because I just don't believe that our friendship is that new, it's super deep. And I mean, this show has been a surprise. I still can't believe we were able to put it so quickly, get so many artists. And I mean, I don't want to brag about our show, but honestly, it's a very good show. It's a very good show. And
it's an excellent show. I did look at it. I mean, 50 women in a virtual show is amazing.
A physical.
And physical. So people can go see it now if they wanted to, couldn't they?
Yeah. All throughout March.
So tell the audience how they can see the show, because I'm sure they'll go see it. People are dying to go do something. And this sounds like the perfect way to start your release from exile, I'll say, is to go see a wonderful art show.
Well, I have to say also, part of, I think, what makes this so successful is we have similar passion and commitment and hard work to put something together like this, which is needed to put something, any exhibition together, but something especially this large. But we each have our own talents and skill sets, which we complement each other on. And I think that's a testament to who we are as people, but also as women. Women tend to realize that, to see each other's skill sets and try to help each other. So the physical aspect, people can come to the West Village. It's very close to any of the subways. And it's pretty much central Greenwich Village on 224 Waverly Place between 7th Avenue and West 11th Street. Right on the street, there's no elevator. You just go right in, handicapped accessible, essentially. And one little step, but we'd be glad to help anybody up into it who needs the help. It's open Monday through Friday, 11 a.m. to 3 p.m. However, if you would like to come outside those hours, you let us know or the church know, and we will open up and give you a personal tour if there's nothing going on in the space. They also have other concerts going on, other meetings. They also work with the community. So, 12-step programs and things like that come into the space. So it's a very community-oriented space. There's a wonderful restaurant right next door, Tayam. It's a falafel salad place. So there's a lot of places, coffee shops to meet at before or after. And it's going on through March 31st. We'll have a closing that night as well.
On March 31st.
March 31st. You can't get in during the month. Come on the 31st and you'll probably see several of the artists based on COVID protocols. And like I said, just reach out to us. Happy to give you a personal tour. I think virtually every piece is for sale. We did sell one piece the night of the opening. And we'd love to help some of our artists sell more. So, please come by to visit. But if you can't, Arantxa, take it away about the virtual.
Yeah, sure. Something that I also want to mention is that when we had 1 week to put this show together, by the way, it's crazy that the month that was open was March because it's Women's Month. So it really was meant to be.
That's what I call divine intervention.
Yeah, exactly. Divine intervention all the way. And what's funny is I'm like, okay, we're going to curate the show, but it is curated. But what's tricky is that honestly, I just chose artists that came into my mind, like good friends and artists that maybe were not that close, but I knew because we follow an Instagram or whatever, and I just made a huge list for Heidi. Like, how long did I take? Like 5 minutes. I was like, okay, so write down this artist, this artist, this artist. I just started like talking about artists that came to my mind. I want to make a little parenthesis here to all artists out there that are listening to this. It's super important to try to all the time get your work noticed and keep good relationships with people that are in your community. Because more than my friends that I chose to this show, I chose artists that came into my mind because they are putting their foot out there, because they're not all my friends. Some of them are artists that I'm like, hey, like, it's been on my radar. It's important to be on the radar of people because that's what people think about you. And that's what happened in this show, and then along these weeks, there's artists that I've thought about and I'm like, she would have been a good choice, but in that moment, it didn't strike my mind because maybe I haven't seen her posts I don't want to say that it's only Instagram, but the point is it's good to put yourself out in the radar to be remembered and for people to include you in things, that's important. So the point is that we got all these artists together, right? With knowing that they were all different kinds of work, all different kinds of media, because with more time, we would have sat down and we're like, okay, sculpture. Who do you want to do with sculpture? Who do you want to do for video? With more time. This time is like, let's just do our list and bring them all together. When we brought them all together to a space and we actually started doing not the curatorial process, because that's one thing, but the museography, how we're going to set up the space, the work of each other came together in a fantastic way. It was almost as we had like handpicked them. Crazy how their work spoke to each other in a fantastic way. So yes, this show is magical in many ways. But anyway, I want to go back to the online version. Nowadays, because of the pandemic, and I think in a way this is how it's going to happen from here onwards, those are the perks that the pandemic has brought to us. You have to have an online platform. You have to take the things virtually, because that's just how it works. So we're going to have strong virtual activities. And the most important one is this next Tuesday 16 from 7 to 9 p.m., we're going to have our official online opening.
Ooh.
Yeah, we had the in-person opening, which we have to confess that one, it was organized kind of fast. And two, we also didn't want to promote that much the in-person opening, because we knew that due to COVID, we couldn't promote that much the in-person opening. And even with the little amount of promotion that we gave to the in-person, we had to like make people wait at the door, like, so if we had really promoted the in-person opening, it would have been kind of crazy. So that's why now we're doing a huge effort to make the opening online. And I want to say, I've been to a lot of online openings, and before going to my first one, I was very skeptical. I was like, how are you going to see? Art is never the same online than in person. I do have to say that.
Well, because it's kind of like a thumbnail you're looking at.
Yeah, it's not the same. This is going to sound crazy, but you don't feel the energy of the pieces the same way,
Yeah.
Color changes, and it's very different online than in person, but there's still magic in an online opening. And there's something different, because when you see the opening in person, you're walking around the pieces, but your mind is distracting. You're like talking to people. But when it's online, you're like sitting in front of the computer and you're just taking the whole show in, because you're literally going through a guided tour of the show. That's been my experience with online openings. So people out there, if you're afraid of online openings, I encourage you to step in, because you're going to love an online opening, because it's more intimate in a way.
It is. I agree.
Yeah. So what we're planning for the online opening, that is next Tuesday 16 from 7 to 9, we have an Eventbrite link, completely for free, option to donate to the Women's Salon, but it's completely free, and please register, because it's going to be amazing. And what we're planning a very cool video to show the work of the artist in a very smart way, for it not to be overwhelming or too long, and trying to like reach to the depth that we want to reach with the show. So that's going to be the online opening. There's going to be Q&A with the artist afterwards. So the first hour is going to be the introduction to the whole show, and then from 8 to 9 it's going to be Q&A for the artist. So that is the opening. But then along the month, we're going to have a series of talks. We created 4 talks. I'm going to say what are the topics of the talks. The first talk that we're going to have, it's called Health and Healing, Art that Rehabilitates Body, Place, and Space.
Mm.
So we had, from our 50 artists, we threw the topics at them, and we're like, where do you want to talk? So different artists sign up to different talks. All the talks are full. It's going to be around 10 artists per talk. They're going to have the opportunity to talk deeper about their work and do a presentation of more than one piece from each of them related to different topics. So yeah, Health and Healing, Art that Rehabilitates Body, Place, and Space is the first talk.
Okay.
The next talk is Religion, Mysticism, Spirituality, and Politics, Being an Artist and Exploring the Invisible World.
Mm-hmm.
And then the fourth talk is Art and the Power of Voice, Living as an Artist of Color and LGBTQ Artist in current times. And the last talk is called Why Are There No Great Women Artists? Explaining Linda Nochlund's manifesto. So Linda Nochlund is an amazing writer. She passed away already. She created an amazing manifesto. It's called Why Are There No Great Women Artists? Explaining in a very deep way why, honestly, there's more famous men that are artists.
That's true.
Than women when there were fantastic women, even more talented than Picasso, at that time, that nobody knows about them. Like, why was Kandinsky more famous than Hilma Klimt when they were from the same era in a sort of way, So that's an amazing manifesto. So yeah, those are the 4 talks that we're gonna have with different artists. So it's a full month of activity, putting woman power up there, a very good opportunity to go deep into art and culture, and we're very excited to have as many people as we can. Also, in the Eventbrite link, you can sign up to talks, which are also for free.
Eventbrite is really good to have for any kind of event. I agree with that. I just want to get back onto the subject of, and I'll ask Heidi this, I'll ask you both, you decide you can both answer it separately. It's interesting that you decided to embark upon this International Women's Art Salon. I always found it be ironic that it seems that it's the men, even in my town where I live right now, it's the men that seem to get all the attention in the arts. Not that they shouldn't. I'm not going to discriminate, but women are doing art that's just as well. And if you look back in history, the people that we were taught about in school are men. And yet I always thought it was ironic that art in itself, just to actually engage in it, whether you're male or female, you're going to engage in your feminine mind to get there. That's what I think, just thinking as a learning theorist. But I always thought it was ironic that the men are the ones that are selling these pieces. I mean, I used to date, before I know as an artist, a man in Manhattan, and he used to live on the Upper West Side, and he did his work on the Lower West Side, and he was selling work like crazy globally. It's like we always had to kind of like sneak in timidly, show our pictures, even though they might be just as strong. Heidi, how did you know that you needed to do this?
Yes. Well, when I moved here to New York City in 2005, I've been a fine art photographer since I was about 5 or 6 years old. And I think many artists have felt the calling in a very early age. They may not have had training or delved into it till later on in life, but I think many of us have felt that calling when we were small and little. I knew at a young age I wanted to be an artist, a photographer. I did a lot of other dabbling in different arts, but I also was kind of like, I'm supposed to do what I'm supposed to do. I'm an A student and I got to take all my math and science classes. I got to go to college. And so I decided to go to college for something else, but I always had this idea, well, I can always do my photography, right? And then it was always been a part of my life. I would take pictures at various jobs I do and things like that. And I think that happens for many artists, that we wind up being, thinking, especially when we have to go into a proper career to make money so that we don't have to depend on men, especially, this in the 21st century, and things like that. So I had some things in my life, some deaths around me that made me realize at near 40 that, life's too short not to be pursuing your passions. And this could be a very long story, so I'm going to shorten it.
It's okay.
Essentially, I left my old life, quit my job, didn't have my retirement, sold my car, and I went to Europe for most of 2004 to just dive into my art. And I was lucky I didn't have a family. I didn't have kids to worry about and things like that. But I've known many other women artists who have, dived into their art with families. So when I eventually landed here in New York City, after someone said, oh, you should move to New York. It's the art capital of the world. I was like, oh my God, New York City. I don't know. I'm from a small town. Best thing I ever did. And I found out that I'm a master networker. I love people. And I have a business background because I did decide to go to school for something else. And I had a fundraising background from a job I had. And as I was immersing myself in the art world, going to all these free, workshops, I essentially moved here with no money because I'd spent all my money in Europe. And so I came to, New York with no money, no job, no place to live. And, I made it, and you can make it happen. And I was realizing I was meeting so many other women artists, incredible work, and the passion, and every age, every discipline, every background from around the world. And I said, this is something special. And I said, let's bring women artists together. And it just sort of came together. And then it built into this platform of wanting to, give a platform for women artists, not just, it started out as, hey, let's be sort of like the Andy Warhol factory. Let's all get together and create art together and, help each other. But it's about sharing resources, connecting, finding synergies, collaborations, and raising up each other and helping society see that women artists are strong as men in terms of skill and talent, just like every other industry. And let's help society see that. Let's help women artists feel that power that they already have and give them the permission to, hey, say, this is my work. It's damn good. Excuse my language, And that's what is about, is bringing women artists together, having, crossing over, sharing resources, each other's talents. And as Arantxa mentioned, part of her thesis was about that manifesto. Why aren't there, where are all the women artists? And, as with many other industries, women have been written out of history. Yeah. And it is also part of IWAS's goal to rewrite history or herstory, to bring to light historical women creatives around the world, connecting them with contemporary women artists, but also partnering with their male colleagues and friends and partners and fans out there, because we cannot do this alone. We cannot be insular. We have to work together to, for equality for women, to raise up equal pay, equal representation. So that's what it's all about.
I have to also kind of mention, you said something, I don't know if it was you, Heidi, or you, Arantxa. You mentioned something about uplifting the economy of women artists. Now, often artists in my experience, I've found that many artists, and especially women artists, are always hesitant to talk about selling their art and making some money with it. And I think in this day and age, there is sort of a trend towards monetizing what we're doing, which people would consider a hobby when it really is your livelihood, whether you're making money at it or not, because it's who you are. Tell me and tell the audience, I'm going to ask, you guys decide who should best answer this question. What's your approach to monetizing the work of artists? What is your approach to monetizing it?
I wish I could say that I've been very successful on this, but I have to admit that not quite as I would wish to, but not in terms of money, in terms of it's been hard for me also with all this money part. What I wanted to say is, I think what happens to artists, and I'm going to talk in general. I'm not going to talk only about women artists, but what every artist has is the imposter syndrome. That's something that we all fight against. We all have the imposter syndrome, because it's like, I made this, but I'm not sure if it's good enough, and someone is going to sell it, and it's something that I created that just came out of my mind. So how am I going to put money into this if it's something that, that is not really serving in any way? And there is where I step in, and I'm like, that's wrong. Because it is serving in a lot of ways, I mean, if we think about it, civilizations are remembered by their arts. If we talk about the Egyptians, the Greeks, we remember them by the arts. We remember them by their paintings. And also we remember them by their wars.
Oh, yes, it's true, the wars.
But if we go deep on it, it's because of their arts. It's because of their culture. So at the end of the day, when we get the imposter syndrome, we have to think deeply and say, we are creating culture, at the end of the day. And what is art? Oh, we can make a whole conversation just trying to point down what is art, because it's a very hard question to respond. But I think that art is a creator of culture. So when we are putting our art out there, we are actually making the world a favor in a way.
Yes,
so monetizing, I can go through all the technical aspect of how to monetize your art, or not the really technical, because the technical aspect would be okay, write down how many hours you spend on the piece, write down how much do you spend on materials. When you have how much you spend in materials, multiply it by 4, and then think about how much do you want to be paid by an hour. But that's also super tricky.
It is tricky, yes.
Yeah, but also, for example, I'm gonna give an example that happened in this show. I'm not gonna say names or anything, but I want to use this as an example. I was doing the catalog, and I saw a piece that was incredible, yes, of course, but it was $75,000, And I asked the artist, is it $7,500 or is it 75,000, 100 or 1,000? And the artist was like, it's actually 75,000 because it took me 3 years to make. And what I said is, well, I think that your piece is worth that because it's a fantastic piece, but sadly we have to be honest, what's our stage in our career right now? If we've been 10 years working in our art, we have to have prices that stand with the stage that we are carrying in our career, because what happens if we start putting those prices in our piece and then, it's going to come a point where our pieces are going to be unsellable. You're just going to expect billionaires to buy your pieces, and that's going to get a little bit tough, So you do want to be in the marketplace in a sort of way. And also you have to think, what is your stage in your career? Where have you shown your piece? If it's the first time that you have showed your piece, it's a different price than if you had shown your piece 10 different times in that 10 different places. Have you showed your piece only in New York? Have you shown your piece around the USA? Have you shown your piece internationally? How many shows have you shown your piece? Like, all these things has to do also with how much money do you want to put in your piece, So it's tricky there because it doesn't only have to do with the effort that you invest in it. Sometimes, and what I was telling this artist is, I think your piece is fantastic, but the point that you're in your career right now and the curriculum that this piece has, I think you're going to have a very hard time selling it in that price point. That if you put a lower price and you have more opportunity to grow your piece and really compete it. And you're like, oh yeah, it's a huge piece and I worked 3 years in it. Yes. Okay. But then if you sell it, you're going to have more opportunity for the next one to sell a little bit higher and create your sales curriculum, because it's not only your show curriculum, it's also your sales curriculum. And
I'm just going to share the audience what I kind of know is that you price your pieces, your art based on your last sale. That's what I was taught when I became an artist, when I actually started calling myself artist. It's based on your last sale. And then you can inch it up. And then you add all those things about material and time. And then the hard part, and I'm just like preaching to the audience a little bit on this one, you have to make up your mind what you're going to value your time with. So if you're going to value your time at like $40 an hour, then you just throw that into the mix if you can actually do that. But I hear what you're saying, and it's really hard. I know when I first started doing art, I thought it was so great, and everybody's praising me. And I'm thinking, yeah, I want like $25,000. Like that boyfriend I had some years ago who was an artist. But see, he was established, and he was a man, and he was very good. But it's basically based on, there is a formula, and it really actually works. It's based on your last piece, how much you got for your last piece. If your last piece sold at $1,000 and it was this particular size, then your next piece will be worth $1,000. That's what I was taught. And that person will probably be listening to this show, can come back and correct me if he wants to. But that's what I was told. And then you add in your materials. And the hardest part is, how much are you going to value your time? At what price is your time? And I think that as you've been an artist for a while, you can value your time for more.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Some people value their time differently for whatever they're doing. Yeah, that's hard. $75,000. But I know people that get that, though. I do know people that get that money.
I'd like to add a component to all of this as well. And the challenge with selling art, well, there's many challenges with selling art. It's a very subjective industry in terms of taste, but it's also very trolled by the higher level buyers market, for lack of a better term, 1%, for instance. So the people who are valuing what artwork is currently at, they're picking the pieces and they're setting the prices like at auction houses, etc. And that has historically been male-based, both in terms of who controls the industry, who is buying, as well as who they're showing. So I think we're in a pivotal point in history, and I've been saying this since I moved to New York and started the Salon, that we are in a pivotal moment. And this is the time for us to take back control of the markets, of what we see art's value is. And part of the reason I founded the Salon is I want to help change how things are done, help do things differently, take back the control. So rather than waiting for a curator to come to me and say, hey, Heidi, I love your work, I want to put you in a show, I'm creating my own shows. I'm inviting other artists. The same for critiques and reviews. We do self-peer reviews. We connect with other colleagues and, we invite them. So, and that also leads into the market. We can help change the trajectory of how artwork is valued at the middle to lower rungs, if you want to put them as such, because there's people creating art all over the world in small communities, small towns of 5,000 people, all the way to big metropolises. Yeah. And of course, location is going to be a factor. So there's many factors into the equation, but this is a time where we can help as people are experienced, like Arantxa and I and you, Toni, and other curators can help guide artists to say, for instance, in this show, Arantxa gave you the sort of extreme on the upper end. There was a couple artists who came into the show who are, don't really sell much work. They've been in maybe a couple shows. They might be a little bit insecure about their art. And they're maybe not, okay, I don't know. What should I sell it for? I don't know. It's just really hard to value it. And they said, well, maybe $100 or $250. And both Arantxa and I said, no, you should put $1,200 on this. You should put $400 on this.
Yeah.
Because you also, the other end is we need to help guide women artists to realize, even if you haven't sold a piece in your life, this piece is of value and it's equated to the value, especially in the show. So for instance, this show, we told these artists, okay, the other photographs who, experienced artists, et cetera, they're ranging from $250 to say $600. Okay, let's put you're an emerging artist. Let's put you at $250 or $300. So we're also trying to help women feel the power that it's okay to make money.
Yeah, thank you. That's what I'm waiting for. That's what I was waiting to hear.
It's the unit of exchange in the world. We have to make money. We have to dollars. If it was pebbles way back when, or seashells, we'd be saying the same thing. What is the unit of exchange? And this is why I'm trying to change the economies of being an artist, helping society see, try not to preach here, helping society see that artists, men or women, but especially women at this point, because we're not equally represented, both value as well as opportunity, that we are strong economic contributors to a healthy society, not just cultural contributors. Yes, we are creating culture, but we are creating a healthy society. And for society to be healthy, we have to be able to provide the opportunity, the economic security for women and other artists to do their work, not have to work 1, 2, 3, 4 jobs in order to pay the rent. You come home and then you're tired. You don't want to do your art, right? Yeah. Society is losing out. And that's part of my mission. And I say to women artists out there, feel that power you have. Yeah. Trust in your passion, trust in your light, and embrace it, and take a little step, get into a show, and you'll have mentors around you like Arantxa and other women artists in International Women Artists Salon and other organizations. Learn and just get yourself out there, like Arantxa said.
Absolutely.
Money is abundant. Like at the end of the day, money is abundance,
Exactly.
In a way. So it's important to, I want to piggyback of what Heidi said. What I love about this organization, about IWAS, is that it's doing exactly that. It's bringing opportunities for artists to start pivoting into also larger organizations. You're not. I mean, you might be very lucky and you might get right away represented by a huge gallery. But the way to get to the big galleries, I mean, if you're interested in that, because there's also many incredible spaces that are not exactly blue chip galleries, that are awesome places to show, So first you have to decide, like, where do you want to show, what was the best platform for your work. So it's not necessarily like a huge, big gallery, but wherever you want to get, you have to get there. It sounds very redundant. And friend the other day called me. She's like, "Hey, remember my brother?" And yeah, I'm like, "Yeah, I remember your brother from when we were in college." And she's like, "Well, remember that he was a great artist. He drew really well." And I'm like, "Yeah, of course I remember that. Your brother was super talented." He's like, "Well, now he's starting to go a little bit more professional. He's starting to take this more seriously. And I was wondering if you can help him out." And I'm like, "Okay, I would love to help out your brother, but the best advice that I can give him and I can give everybody is you have to start submitting your work to open calls."
You have to show your work. You have to show your work.
You have to show your work. And there's incredible opportunities out there to show your work that you don't have to pay. There's a lot of open calls that you have to pay to show your work, like maybe pay $15 to get accepted in a submission. And you decide how much you want to invest in the open calls that you apply to. I'm not against applying paid open calls. I'm not against that. You decide. There's many that are free. And what you have to do is put your work out there. That's super, super important, And why is this important? One day somebody asked me a question. If somebody suddenly out of the blue gave you $1 million, what would you do with that? Would you put your gallery? Would you start making your monuments in public places? What would you do with all that money? And I was like, honestly, if I had all that money, I would still be doing things the same way. Why? Because there's something with legitimization. I don't know if I'm saying it correctly, but if you have your own money to just open your own gallery and put your own work out there and pay for your monuments, in a way that doesn't really make your work legit. If your work is accepted to different shows and you start climbing that hill slowly, your work starts getting legitimized. I don't know if I'm saying that word correctly because of my legitimize,
Legitimize it, yes.
So it's super important to understand as an emergent artist. I'm still considered an emergent artist, to be honest.
Well, we are constantly emerging as we evolve. We emerge as something else.
Most women artists are considered emerging, unfortunately.
I mean, I think it has to do also with career. How many, for example, if you've been in your career less than 10 years, you're still an emergent artist. More than 10 years, you start being more of a established artist. Mid-career, and then, exactly. There's emergent artists, mid-career, established, and then there's, I don't know the word in English, but consecrated artists. Artista consagrado, how do you say that? When you're like a big deal in the arts world. And not everybody makes it there, and it's not necessary either, I also believe that a lot of things happen because of your karma. It's a whole different ballgame.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to end this on the note that's most positive, that I think that anyone listening who's an artist, curator, or collector is that show your work. And I think that I really applaud both of you, Heidi Russell and Arantxa Rodriquez, for actually just going the mile, doing the finding an alternative venue, which was a church, which I think is great, and also, segueing into online, showing online. I think it's fantastic. Give the audience one more time the URL that they can go to see this great exhibit that you're doing for Women's History.
If you go to Eventbrite, the page Eventbrite.
Eventbrite, yes. Mm-hmm.
Eventbrite, and you look for Spring Forward. There you can find the show. And
I really recommend it because I went and I was glancing through, and there is phenomenal art in there. And anyone that's listening that's a collector, that's the place to go to buy some art. I'm going to tell you, go there, buy it. All right?
Please.
Don't just look and say, oh, yeah, nice, and you like it. No, go buy it. And I appreciate you guys talking about the monetization of our work. And I appreciate the fact that you're actually highlighting women artists. It's a beautiful thing. And I got to say, I love you both. I look forward to getting together with you guys sometime, maybe through a Zoom. We'll do something. But this is really good. And the show goes on until it's being extended a little bit. How long are you going to have it up for?
Until the 31st of March. But I really encourage you to jump in the online opening and the amazing talk. One of the talks that we're going to have is exactly what we're talking about. Linda Nocken's manifesto is fantastic. And it talks, so really the virtual talks are going to be very, very interesting.
Enjoy the beautiful work, because I'm just going to say to the audience as we close is that, the work of artists is always very powerful if you sit and take the time to look at it. The art that's in this show is extraordinary. It's definitely something that should not be missed. You should go see it. And I'll say to people that are listening who are not artists, start looking at art and you'll find that there's a part of yourself that, you didn't know just by viewing it. And Heidi Russell, Arantxa Rodriquez, the two of you are just so good. I thank you so much for coming to the Energy Stoners Cafe, and I'm looking forward to another discussion with you. You'll come back, I know. I'll have you both back.
Toni,
thank you. Thank you so much.
You're so welcome.
Toni, I just want to give a shout out. If you have after March 31st, connect with International Women Artists Salon, thefulword.com. Join us as members, partners, fans. Let's connect and continue on past March 31st as well. But thank you for this opportunity, Toni.
Oh, it's my pleasure. And people, you can go anywhere from the world. Anywhere you are in the world, you can connect to this. It's definitely worth the time and the effort. You won't be disappointed. And Heidi, you're phenomenal. Arantxa, I'm really very glad that I finally met you.
Yeah, me too.
You're not just a name that I thought I couldn't pronounce. It's like, how do you say this? But no, it's a beautiful thing. And thanks again. And I'm going to say good night to the audience. Thanks for visiting the Energy Stoners Cafe. Please be nice and be safe. Be mindful and love. I'll see you next time. Bye-bye. Thank you for listening to the Energy Stoners Cafe.
Thank you for listening to Passionate World Talk Radio. You can listen to this program all over again by going over to https://passionateworldtalkradio.com. You can also hear it on Spotify, Spreaker, Amazon Alexa, AMFM247.com every Tuesday evening between 8 and 9 p.m. YouTube, Facebook Live, LinkedIn, and all the other podcast directories one can find on the internet.